Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the January 26th Oklahoma City Planning Commission meeting and ask if you have pagers or cell phones, if you would silence those for us, please. If you're not the applicant and you want to talk to us about a case today, there are sign-up sheets on the table outside the chambers. If you would complete that and give it to our Commission Secretary, we'd be happy to hear you. And with that, we'll go to approval of the minutes.
Move approval.
I should say of January 12th, to be specific. We have a motion and a second to approve the January 12th minutes. Cast your votes, and the minutes are approved. Continuance requests, Russell?
We have 5 uncontested requests for continuance. Item 12 is CE 820, request to continue until February the 9th. Item 13 is PUD 1451. Item 14, C 6321. Item 15, C 6322. And item 16, C 6328, all request to continue until February the 23rd.
Did anyone come today to talk to us about any of the items just read, 12 through 16 on our agenda?
Move the uncontested continuance.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the continuances. Cast your votes, and they're approved.
There are 3 new requests for continuance. Item 6 is SPUD 650, request to continue until July the 12th. Item 7 is C6329, a request to continue until February the 9th. Item 11, ABC 751, a request to continue until February the 9th, or February the 23rd, sorry.
Again, the same question. Is anyone here who came to talk to us about items 6, 7, or 11 on our agenda?
Move approval of the new continuances.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to approve items 6, 7, and 11 as continuances. Cast your votes, and they're approved. Are there any requests for continuances from the public today?
On the consent docket today, we have 2 items. Item 1 is V1-6224, and item 2, C5000.
Commissioners, no one has signed up. Is anyone here today to talk to us about items 1 and 2 on our docket? Sir? Yes, I'm here for Sun Contracting. Would you come to the microphone, please? Tell us which one you want.
I'm Steve James. I'm project manager with Sun Custom Homes, and was requesting a variance for a certificate of occupancy for Rio Toscano subdivision.
Okay, we understand. So you're not here to protest the application?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. That's what we need to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Move the continuance. I'm sorry, the consent docket.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve items 1 and 2. Cast your votes, and those are approved.
On items requiring separate vote, item 3 is SPUD 652. It's an application by Senior Living Services to rezone 12,000 North MacArthur from PUD 817 to SPUD 652 in Ward 8.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Brian Kuhn with Kuhn Engineering, representing the applicant. Just a brief story of what's going on here. This is a dementia care facility out on North MacArthur. It's located in the Glenhurst subdivision, just south of 122nd Street on the east side of MacArthur. Backs up to one of the phases of Glenhurst, south and west of the new library out in northwest Oklahoma City. I will get into, so I won't waste your time, just at the staff report level. On the back page, I'm sure you read it as I have. There's no unfavorable considerations. There is one TE that talks about no more than 30% stucco, EIFS, wood, or concrete board. And I wanted to just look at those pictures to see what we're doing here. And this is actually the front of the building. We'd like to see if we can waive that comment. We do have 70% of the other comments that are in there. The back of the building is surrounded by an 8-foot wood fence, so no one will be seeing the back of the building. And another thing I did want to mention, this, talked to the architect yesterday, they don't use EIFS. This is a 3-step stucco building process, any of the stucco that you see. And I kind of interested in that comment about no more than 30%, because 2 miles north of here, the subdivision of Gaillardia, probably half the houses are 100% stucco. And I think if it's a real stucco material, it's something that's going to last a long time, and it's a good-looking product. So I'd like to see if we could waive TE number 1, and other than that, I would ask for your approval.
Brian, what would the material be on the back of the buildings?
It is also, it's the same things you're seeing here, it's just less of it. There's some pictures in those, in that, what I'm passing around. There's one with some orange lights that you see in the window. That's the back of the building.
So that'll be stucco?
Partially stucco, partially stone, partially brick. Again, the back of the building is 29% stone and brick, 71% stucco and trim. You got window trim that you have to count into this. The window trim is a concrete material. It's not wood anymore or aluminum. They're aluminum windows, but the trim around the windows, I mean, even here, as you can see, it's a concrete material. This is stucco. Any of the pictures you see on the bow, and those are on those pictures, this flat material is the stucco. As you can see, it's heavily landscaped. The backyard is to be meant to be like a backyard of somebody's house. So that's what it's utilized as. So again, we do have the 70% brick, stone, stucco comment in our design statement. It's just we don't want to go with the no more than 30% of the EIFS or stucco or wood or concrete. Again, and I talked to Mr. Gales, and I have to correct myself, this material is, along the trim, is the concrete, the hardy material. They no longer used wood, but the soffit is a concrete material. This would be stucco. This is the stone, as well as we have brick here. So
we could say no more than 30% wood and EIFS,
yes,
leaving the stucco, and you'd be happy with it?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Brian, there's several different kinds of stucco. There's several different plies of stuccos. Do you happen to know the product name on that and how it's applied?
I don't know. Kip, do you know? I don't know the name of the system, but he did tell me yesterday it's a 3-step stucco process. I don't know what that means. I've never applied stucco, but it's not an EIFS. It's not the EIFS.
Well, that could mean, the styrofoam and then one ply or one ply of material and then one ply of stucco, which is not a very good wall. If you would commit to do the same plies and the same kind of application and maybe even the same product as they're doing in Gaillardia, would you commit to something like that?
Well, yeah, I will. I think we can look at Gaillardia. Even Gaillardia, and it's been interesting, I've been at some, they're not supposed to have EIFS. And I'm hoping I'm not getting anybody in trouble at Gaillardia, but a lot of folks have slipped in cast stone in EIFS. But we will not be doing the EIFS system, I'll tell you.
There's some stipulation in Gaillardia that you can have that, but there's a certain product, a certain number of plies and so on and so forth that you...
I think we'd be okay saying no more than 30% EIFS or what you said.
Wood.
Or wood.
Okay.
And we'll study that and make sure we're not doing the EIFS type stucco. How about?
Okay, so you're not sure, I just don't want to see something put up there, one ply, that a lawnmower could throw a rock to it and so on and so forth.
And I don't think, for what they're wanting to do here, I don't think they want something that's non-maintainable either.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good.
I had just a couple of questions. This is going to be sprinkled, the building, right? You're going to have sprinklers?
Yes.
I mean, I just want to, that's in the staff report, but I just want to make sure that that's there. And the second one is the comment from the Parks Department that you're within the watershed that impacts Martin Park.
We've already made that.
And you've got detention to the satisfaction of the Parks Department?
Yes, and we've already put that language in the document about 2 weeks ago.
It's in PUD.
Yeah, it's in
I
the
just
PUD.
want to clarify, just make sure. Okay.
But any other discussion, Commissioners?
I'm signed up.
No one.
Move approval of the application.
Second?
Deleting,
Amending TE number 1.
Amending.
Yeah,
amending T.
yeah, that'd be
Okay.
fine. Sure.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 3, amending T1. Cast your votes, and you're approved.
Thank you.
Item 4 is SPD 648, an application by Chesapeake Land Development Company to rezone 5901 North Châtel from I-1 District to SPUD 648, Ward 2.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of Chesapeake. Also with me is Tim Johnson. This application for SPUD 648 is to permit the construction of a parking garage at 59th and Chartel. Our SPUD document mirrors the rest of the campus regulations and is in conformance with the plan, and staff has recommended approval. We seek your approval. We're here to answer any questions.
No one signed up. Janice? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve item 4. Cast your votes, and you're approved.
Thank you.
Item 5 is SPUD 601, application by Dean Dyes to rezone 10330 North Hudson from R1 to SPUD 601 in Ward 2.
I don't see the applicant here. Yeah, we'll just move item 5 to the end of the docket and see if Mr. Dyes appears.
Item 8 is PUD 1452, an application by Chesapeake Land Company to rezone 5800 North Classam from PUD 1353 and SPUD 508 to PUD 1452, Ward 2.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
back on 4, on the last page, that's wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This happened last time as well, and there's some glitch in the SIA in our automatic assemblage process. We're aware of it. I know, yeah, so, beyond my ability to correct.
Nothing to do with PUD 1452.
I can't speak to Sire. I didn't understand it when I worked at the city attorney's office, so I certainly don't understand it now. So are we?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of Chesapeake. Also with me is Tim Johnson. What we have here in this application, the PUD 1452, is basically a redo of the Class and Curve PUD. When we originally filed it, we allowed restaurants throughout the entirety of the Class and Curve. We met with the neighbors several times, and after those meetings, we have now agreed to limit the restaurants to one additional building. And in this exhibit, you can see this building right here is where restaurants are limited to now, on top of the already existing restaurants. So what we've done is we've come in with this PUD with our revisions. All the regulations from the original PUD stay the same, except for we now have this restaurant space, and we've added the extra protection of all restaurants within the curve, or this building, have to have the extra air quality protection and vent hooding system that exceeds the city standards. And with that, we were here to answer any questions and seek your approval.
David, you might tell the other commissioners what exceeds the city standards for ventilation means in terms of what you're going to filter, just
I'm going to let Tim Johnson speak.
just so we understand what you mean by that language.
Hi, Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates. The intent is to require a filtration system beyond just venting. Depending on which type they buy, it has certain ionization that knocks down the ions that create the smell and filters them from the air. It's not uncommon to find those in higher quality restaurants. And you compare those to Bricktown Burgers, for example, where you can smell all over Bricktown. And that's just the difference. And that's their desires to also have that clean air.
So the intent is to filter out the odor.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
We met last week and I met with the neighbors and with the applicant, and there was quite a lot of give and take, and what they've come back with pretty much answers all of the concerns that were expressed at the meeting. I have one little thing I'd like to ask you. There's some language that refers to the neighborhood and talks about it being a mix of older and newer homes. And as the final wording came out, it's referred to as a transitional neighborhood.
Yes.
That's kind of a term of art. It doesn't really fit, I don't think. I would really like to see that language tweaked a little bit so that it is referred to as an established neighborhood with both older and newer homes.
We can do that before we go to council with that.
And if there's not anybody else who's here who wishes to speak on this matter?
Ms. Reed is here on behalf of the neighborhood and in support. I mean, we're obviously going to go ahead and approve this.
Yes,
So
and
it's
I'm
our-
just here, and I'm Susan Reed from Meadowbrook Acres neighborhood. We met, as Janice said, and I'm just here in support, and I was here in case there were any questions of the neighborhood that we supported.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's anyone else who wishes to be heard, I would move approval.
We have a motion and second to approve item 8. Cast your votes, and it's approved.
Thank you.
Item 9 is SPUD 651, an application by Frontier State Bank to rezone 5100 South I-35 Service Road from PUD 1321 to SPUD 651 in Ward 4.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Tony Blatt, Jay Crawford, and Stephen Callender. What we have here is an application to add another building. If you're familiar with this site, this is where Frontier State Bank is, and they are currently operating. They have a building that has a PUD with a height limit of 50 feet. The renderings that you see right now is a rendering of what will be built, and as you can see, to the right, the white shadow is the existing building. So what we've come in with is a SPUD that mirrors the regulations in the PUD that operates now on the site to allow the building to be higher. It will connect and operate as one building. We've eliminated signs, and there is one TE that we are in agreement with. And with that, we'd ask for your approval.
No one has signed up, Commissioners?
I move to approve the application.
Excuse me, has there been any conversation with the neighborhood to the south about a 4-story building looking into their backyards?
They got notice, and we didn't hear any word from them, so we assumed that they were happy with the improvements that the bank has made, and we'll go forward with.
I don't know, happy would be the word, but
David, you mentioned there are no more signs.
Yes,
There
sir.
is obviously already significant signage on this site that we approved. I wonder if we would approve it again today. And the only reason I'm raising this is, would your client realize their sign is visible from downtown?
I'm not.
Literally, if you park in the city's parking garage and look to the southeast, say, what is that glow down there? It's the Frontier Bank sign. Not only that, I thought it was going to be flashing at a rate of no greater than 8 seconds.
That I am not aware. I know that there was, and Susan, I believe you were involved as well. There was an issue at one point when the sign was approved. It was prior to certain NIT level and other restrictions. Susan, I can tell you we're operating within the confines of the code and what is permitted on the site.
Okay, I'm not going to vote against this application, but I thought it was noteworthy to note that you mentioned there's no request for signage. Well, it's obvious why there's no request for signage. There's plenty of signage there.
And I would like to note that I think it's a great-looking sign. They took great care to match the building and the stone, and it's a great-looking sign. I drive by it twice a day.
Okay, refresh me. Do we have a motion?
We do.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
There's one comment I want clear. Why, from the staff, why did we put the TE on there? Can somebody explain that to me? No, I understand that, but why in this particular location? Why is that there? I don't understand it.
Is that not consistent with our previous request to
The only
somebody
thing
wants
that
a cell tower in the a PUD or an SPUD to specifically leave them out?
with one stipulation as far as I know, some of those cell towers do not have generators. But is my understanding with conversation with one of the cell tower people that most of those cell towers now are accompanied with a generator. And, we're going to have to really be aware of those ones that do have the generator, especially when they're close to an R1. Right. So, and I assume that that's probably one of the reasons why that was put in there. And I don't have a problem with that, but...
Well, the curiosity is, as you said, whatever the uses that you have within this SPUD are exactly the same ones that you have with the white building just next to it? Is that right?
Except for, we have telecommunication towers in the original PUD. So our argument would be if it was appropriate there, it's certainly appropriate here, but...
That's my point. You've got that already in your PUD, that you can put a telecommunication tower where that white building is. Correct. I mean, that's what they've got. All we're doing, Jim, is just deleting it from this particular SPUD, but it doesn't make any difference, just like the sign issue. They already have the signs. They can put anything up.
But what staff is trying to do, I believe, is honor our request on PUDs and SPUDs going forward.
Yes.
That unless they specifically want it,
right,
to
you don't have it.
And that's all
I got it. Okay.
And obviously, they don't need it in this site. If they want one, they'll put it next door.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are you ready? Cast your votes. And item 9 is approved. Thank you.
Item 10 is C-6326, is the final plat of Rockport, Section 4, in Ward 5.
Hello, Tim Johnson again with Johnson Associates representing the applicant. I apologize in advance. I know you guys don't like to receive late photos, but I just got these last night, and they're just brief photos as an example. This is a part of a preliminary plat that was approved in the spring of 2003. Originally included the entire approximately 80 acres, as well as some common area that is on the far east side of the site. We came in with Section 1 first, which is just north of this tract. It was completed in 04-05. Section 2 was completed the year after that. Section 3 has been final platted through the Planning Commission, but it was put on hold because it hit the market around 08, 09, and the market did not support the size of lots that we had proposed there. This last section, we're calling Section 4, is a little bit smaller lot. There's fewer of them, and the developer feels like this is the right time in the market to go ahead and complete this portion of the project. As part of the staff report, we were told that the Planning Commission has requested that language be put in regarding parks. The developer in this case feels like that the original preliminary plat of Rockport was not under the same requirements that there exist today with regard to subdivision regulations. And TE number 4 in the staff reports discuss specifically the additional park type requirements as well as amenities to be dealt with either as part of this phase or as part of Section 3. All the other TEs we're in agreement with, but talking specifically about TE4 with regard to this section, under the pictures I've sent you, it's the amenities that were put in as part of the original Section 1. There's a gazebo that's used very frequently, and then, of course, the entryway goes above and beyond the standard right-of-way improvements, the common area in the islands, and so the front door is done very well. And if you add up all those little areas, it equals just under 3/4 of an acre. It's about 0.6 something. In the staff request, they've asked for 2.5 acres of open space with approximately 3/4 of an acre, improved with recreational amenities when completing Rockport Section 3. And I guess our discussion here would be is that those amenities exist for the entire development now. There are no other active amenities that are proposed. The open space green belt that is on the east side of the project was discussed at the preliminary plat in '03, and we did agree in that staff report and at that time to provide access to that common area, although there would not be any improvements proposed there because it's in a floodplain. And the floodplain requirements through Public Works restrict any type of improvements that would hinder any stormwater flow. So with that, I think if you total that 7 acres with the 3/4 of an acre we have, or approximately 3/4 of an acre we have, we can meet the total requirements that are brought up in this TE number 4. However, the adding any specific additional amenities is objectionable to the developer at this time because it would cost us a lot, basically, somewhere. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'd ask for you to at least accept what has been proposed and what's presented as responding to TE4.
Tim, I guess 2 questions, and they're related. The Section 3, which is the eastern end of the project, would you anticipate coming back with a replat looking for smaller lots at some point? You commented that these lots are larger than you think are marketable right now, or that...
No, they anticipate building it as planned. It's just the market's not ready for that size lot today. It may be ready 6 months from now, and at that case, they'll go ahead and put it in. If there's no intent, we've not been instructed to look at resizing any of those lots.
Okay. And there is provision in the preliminary plat of Section 3 for access to those 7 acres on the east?
Correct.
And that's pretty level land, isn't it, until it gets to the creek?
Yes, it is. It's heavily treed up at the edge of the common area, and it's fairly flat, and then the creek is like 25 feet deep. It just drops off. And there's not a lot you can do there. It is all floodplain out to the limits of the common area.
Is there any part of that common area that would be level and that, like, kids could play, or, you know? I mean, I could not, I've looked at it, I could not tell by, you know, I couldn't get back far enough.
Well, it's not the intent to take away the natural beauty that's there.
Right.
That's really kind of the goal in the development, was to leave it in its natural state. There'll be homes that back up to it, and that's the way that he wanted to maintain it that way.
Yeah, because our goal is obviously to have some open space where kids can go and play and get outdoors, because people fence backyards now, and every backyard in that neighborhood is fenced. And the front area, and I agree, the entrance to the neighborhood is very attractive, very well maintained, very classy. But if I've got children and I'm living in Section 3, I'm not going to let them, until they're reasonably old at least, walk from Section 3 up to the gazebo area to go play catch or whatever.
Well, the other thing that's unique to this particular location is that its proximity to the 2 major regional parks that the city has put in or has underway. The South Lake Parks is located here.
Right.
And then, of course, Earlywine has been improved year after year. And, you know, this is a half a mile away and this is about a mile away.
But if I'm a youngster, I can't get to either of those parks unless Mom or Dad is going to take me, because Portland's 2-lane and no sidewalks, and then, of course, 119th Street's an expressway.
You know, and as a parent, I don't know that in today's times, I don't know if we had sidewalks that I could ride, my kids could ride their bike there, I probably wouldn't let them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wouldn't like when I was a kid, I could, you know, I rode 2.5 miles to school.
Well, I went wherever I wanted to.
Yep.
There were no
Actually,
no sidewalks where I grew up, and there were no fences in backyards, so we could play all over. So, I mean, that's the reason why we're concerned about open space in neighborhoods, because we get requests for very dense areas and then no way for children to get outdoors. And, of course, we're all trying to find ways to encourage people to get outdoors instead of sitting in front of computer screens. So,
I understand.
what's the pleasure of the commission?
On TE3, have you, first of all, was that variance preliminary? I believe it was.
Yes, it was.
And fire department been cleared on that back then?
They did back then, and I've talked to Mike Wilson since.
Okay.
refresh to...
The variance was there.
Now, that was the only question I had. I move the variance in TE3.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the variance TE3. Cast your votes.
Move the application.
Is there a second? Second. All right, and cast your votes, and it's approved.
Is that subject to that TE number 4?
Yes.
Or,
So TE4 stands as it was in there.
are the gazebo and pedestrian access to the common area going to be considered a recreational amenity? Can you include that in part of?
Well, let's back up. The intent of my motion was for TE4 to be modified because they had the other area. And I have a little problem with approving something, negotiating something on a preliminary plat, and then backtracking and saying on a small parcel, I want to stick 2.5 acres of something in the middle of it.
Okay, in that case, make a motion to withdraw your motion.
Okay,
and we'll start over.
I'd make a motion to reconsider.
Okay, we have a motion to
Rescind it.
Rescind.
the motion to approve item 10. Cast your votes. That's approved. Okay, now, Nick, restate your motion.
All right, my motion would be to approve the application consistent with the preliminary plat, which I believe to be not requiring 2.5 acres of open space in this section 3, or it would negate TE4. Am I saying
If you
that?
just delete TE4, then
That would be consistent with the
that's correct.
preliminary plat. Okay, that would be
You
my
agree,
motion.
Tim?
Okay.
I'm looking for consistency with the preliminary plat, so delete TE4.
So that's the motion. The only comment I would make, and that doesn't mean I'm not in agreement with the motion, is that we have been asking people when they come back for final approval on preliminary plats that were approved before the adoption of the subdivision regulation, we've been asking for developers to make some concession in that regard.
And I think, with respect to the people that are going to live there, it doesn't really matter when the preliminary plat was approved or whatever. If we want these people to have, public or open space where they can recreate, it seems to me it applies as much here as it does anywhere else. Now, I understand the argument, I guess, a certain fairness argument with respect to getting caught in the middle of changing regulations. But, I think we need to think about whether, we're going to stand by our policy or not, whether we want people to have open space to play in, so.
Well, I'm for open space too. But here we're in the middle of a deal, and we have a subject site that's 12 acres. And you come along on an after-the-fact basis, after it's designed, and say, wait a minute, King's X, I want you to take 1/6 of your space out for an open area.
I thought I understood you to say it would cost you a lot.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, it would cost lots, because it was
It would cost lots.
2.5 acres, I'm sorry, yeah. Several lots would make up 2.5 acres. These lots, even in Section 3, those lots are about 1/3 of an acre. So it would take about 8 lots to make that 2.5 acres.
Excuse me. Another way to look at it is we've got 2 sections undeveloped. And, well, 2 things. One, given the fact that we have a preliminary plat that we approved some time ago, I would think that we wouldn't necessarily require 2.5 acres. We might ask the developer to make some concession to get some more open space somewhere between the development of sections 3 and 4, for example, without it being 2.5 acres, and without it being 2.5 acres out of Section 4. I mean, I understand both points. I mean, I understand Nick's point, and I also understand Janice's that, once you build out the neighborhood, those folks really aren't tuned into whether, a particular date in subdivision regulations.
In looking at the preliminary plat, there are 2 lots right in between the 2 cul-de-sacs that go up. That when I looked at this, I thought, well, I don't know about, I agree with you, Nick, 2.5, this is a sixth of the whole thing, but I'm troubled by, you see where I mean, if you go, see those 2 lots where the black dotted line is, those 2 lots right off the cul-de-sac. It would appear to me that...
They're open space now. Is that not right, Tim?
What?
I'm not sure I know where he's talking about.
As you come right into the neighborhood, as you drive straight in and look at the gazebo, there are 2 lots depicted that gazebo sits on.
Those will be built on. Those are subdivided lots.
What, the one that's marked 1 and then, I mean, the...
Where's the 3/4 of an acre then that you're talking about?
It's the common area A on there. I think it said B on the final plat. But
That tiny little half moon there?
yes,
That's 3/4 of an acre?
that and the island, the common area, it's not shown on there. That's part of the island, the street, where the street trees are and the landscaping is in the front.
Or you mean the divider and the... We can't use that.
Well, it's part of the common area. It's maintained by the homeowners association.
Back to my point, it troubles me that admittedly this has been platted and it's an old subdivision before we had this open space requirement, but some concession, I think, is appropriate. Not the 2.5, because you've got this other common area that you've said, Tim, is unusable. You can't do anything with it because it's a drop-off cliff that goes into a creek. And we're going to play, that'll be there, but have some concession, a lot or 2. You said 1/3 of an acre, so 2/3 of an acre, just an open space and open this up. I think that's appropriate for this particular application, rather than require 2.5 acres. I can see that, well, that just carves out a whole bunch of this, and that's not probably fair for where you are. But I think that there should be some accommodation to provide some open space into this subdivision that doesn't have any.
And as I recall, sitting in those development meetings with regard to open space, it doesn't necessarily describe it has to be denuded of trees. It's open space, undeveloped land. We've got 7 acres of undeveloped land.
The intent that it would be usable for the residents, though, not...
It's the question of whether or not, how much active amenities you put in that. So if the entire development required 5.5 acres of open space, we've provided more than that from a density standpoint. The fact is that because of the creek location, we cannot, besides the passive amenities that we've already provided, there's no other place to put any active amenities. That's our point, without losing property. And unfortunately, Mr. Odom couldn't be here today, and I'm not, if it's the Commission's decision to require some loss of lots, then I can't, unfortunately, respond to that today.
Nick, you're still thinking. I see you're thinking over there.
Well, what I think I just heard is Tim may be suggesting a continuance is in order.
If it's the Commission's thought that we need to do something other than delete TE4, as your motion had mentioned.
I would ask Paul to consider some sort of a concession of usable space that, kids could get out and play. A softball game, or just get out and be active somewhere that would be accessible to them.
This is something that I fully expect will be addressed in our new plan going forward, but I believe this is a good example. how we count acreage and open space really needs to be reevaluated. I agree with Tim that the creek and the trees and all that should count as open space, because that's what it is. It's going to be open. It's not going to be developed. And the reason it's not going to be developed is, frankly, it's not developable.
Right.
Okay? That's fine. I'm all for giving credit for that. However, I'm not certain we should be giving credit for that acreage when we calculate overall density. Because, again, that land is not developable. Now, right now, that's the way we calculate it, and that's the way we should calculate it. I understand that, but I think that needs to be addressed. Same thing in this application. I don't believe it's fair to necessarily put a gun to their head on a 12-acre tract and say, give me 2.5 acres of open space.
I agree, and that's
on
what
an after-the-fact basis. In the same breath, I can say, well, wait a minute, how large is this entire development? And absent the open space, the undevelopable creek, is there any amenity in this area? And the answer is really no. Now, that still begs the question, well, you approved it once, should you renege on your deal or not? I'm not going there, but or at least not going there today. Tim, I believe the flavor of what I'm seeing is this application is not going to be approved without TE4. So do you want to agree to TE4 and go forward?
No, we'd rather take a continuance today. Move it 2 weeks if we can,
And for how long?
to the next meeting.
You know, there's another aspect to this thing too, from a developer standpoint, and I think we're going to have to be really careful in doing this, is that open space we're talking about, or non-developable space, is paid for by the consumer. And, if we don't watch ourselves, we're going to get these $30,000, $40,000 lots up to $60,000 and $70,000 and $80,000. When a guy develops one of those, they just don't take that out of their pocket. That consumer pays for it in the end result. So I think that's another aspect we need to consider.
I mean, from a planning perspective, in terms of the question of open space, we're looking at different services for open space here. And one of them is an aesthetic thing. You really can't do anything with the creeks, and we certainly don't want to encourage any development of the creek. But that, the presumption of saying losing land is based on that the entire acreage would be developed, and that's not always the case. Not all land is developable, and just speaking to your point, Jim, those undevelopable portions should be taken into account in the acquisition price for the property. But the question in here really is there's two types of open space that need to be that we have, and to service a subdivision, we're looking at that active space, and at this point in time, that is not accounted for, and you can't develop it on the other 7 acres. So it's something that will need to be addressed in review of open space. I mean, we're not, intent obviously is not to penalize the owner for having significant natural open space, but there's also another objective in servicing a neighborhood, and that's the question being struggled with today. But I just wanted to frame that in terms of the differential.
And from a developer's perspective, something else that needs to be added in that equation is this is a long-term deal. When you agree to put 2.5 acres of active open space that have playgrounds or swing sets or whatever, that's a burden on the consumer from now on. That is that increases their dues, their homeownership dues, and many of the neighborhoods that have that try to get rid of that once their neighborhood's sold out. They don't like the increasing of dues and the hazard and the insurance that goes with that. So that is taken into consideration. I'm very fortunate to work for a lot of good developers who put all that into the equation about clubhouses and tennis courts and that, and what will it look like 10 years from now when it's all sold out and those people have to maintain it. So as a committee, I think that needs to be part of the equation.
Yeah. And there's nothing to suggest that the Odoms aren't gold standard developers in terms of the quality of everything they do. I mean, we understand that. So I guess
Appreciate
we're
the
asking
discussion.
for...
2-week continuance?
And for Paul to at least consider some sort of compromise with us.
I will pass it on.
Okay.
I'll move
We have a motion.
2-week continuance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue item 10 for 2 weeks. Cast your votes, and it's approved.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your time.
And item 9, Dean Dias is not here, so we'll continue this for 2 weeks as well. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, a motion and a second to continue item 5 for 2 weeks. Cast your votes. And that is approved. That concludes the public hearing items. Planning Commission committees, planning commissioners. I do think that the point that Nick brings up is one that I've been thinking about for a while, which is how do we identify developable land? How do we address the developer's investment in real estate? How do we recognize the needs of people once they have an area developed and they're living there? So, I mean, it is it's like an onion with 3 or 4 layers of issues that relate to it.
Didn't we have this is a few years ago, a study session on that very subject, when here's a bunch of land, and if they would hold out or preserve the natural parts of it, they could have increased density on the rest of it. We went through a whole lot of that.
We did do that, and we also spent time with the industry talking about the subdivision regulation requiring open space and amenities in residential subdivisions. So, I mean, those are things that will probably get revisited in the plan update process.
Good.
Yeah, I would think. Planning Department.
There is no simple formula there, but
Yeah.
I think keeping in mind the objectives of what we're trying to do is the key part of that, and providing the flexibility to be able to determine a solution that works for everybody in each individual case. It's not easy, but everybody has an understanding of what the issues are. Okay. The Citizens Advisory Team, their first meeting will be February the 7th at 3 p.m. at the zoo. That's the building outside the zoo grounds, the zoo, I forget what it's called, complex. It's on the east end. 3 p.m., 3 to 5?
3 to 5, 2 hours.
And that will be an orientation of what the purpose of the Citizens Advisory Team is, the scope, what's gone on so far. So there'll be a briefing on the process to this point. And we'll also be looking at trying to identify a permanent calendar going forward as well. So,
Russell, will there be materials handed out at that? I won't be there.
yeah, I understand you will not be able to be there. There will be. I don't know what they are at this point.
Okay, because I'd like to see what they are, but I won't be there at that.
So for planning commissioners who are on that, other than Commissioner Bright, that's the date.
Okay, anything else, Russell?
We selected a growth scenario analysis consultant, and that was approved at City Council last week. And we have to now negotiate the contract, and
Is that Eco Northwest?
it is Eco Northwest.
Okay.
And they'll start work here at some point, and probably in March sometime. We also have coming up for study sessions, we have the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan. We're being a lot more interactive with this process, as we've indicated in the past, and we have briefings coming up on February the 23rd and March the 8th, that we're looking at for study sessions. On the 23rd, we'll have police, fire, and airports. And then on March the 8th, we'll have public works, utilities, and maps. So this is the opportunity to engage with the CIP process on those particular departmental planning.
Police, fire, and what were the three in the first session?
Airports?
Airports, that's it. Okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
Development Services, Lance or, no? Terry? Municipal Counselor? I see no citizens to be heard. Any other business? Motion to adjourn? And we're adjourned at 12:21.